let's go over some products.
Okay.
The first one I think I'd like to go over is the bar trigger, because that surprised me in a video, and I'm dropping in a clip right now. This is the video that I first saw, strangely enough, a day or two before we connected. I happened to see this, not know what it was. I found out what it was, and here we have one. So let's talk
and I
about
believe
that.
that's definitive is in that particular clip.
Yeah.
He's actually works for our Latin American division as a clinician and demonstrator, and he was actually one of the contestants in the V-Drums contest and was one of in the World Championship in 2012.
Wow.
He was one of the contestants representing Peru.
It actually took me a moment to figure out that what he was hitting, because I heard a large China cymbal, but I didn't see one, and lo and behold, this is what he was hitting.
And here, obviously, I have an acoustic tom, and what Dan's referring to is this here. This is called the BT1 bar trigger pad. And out of the box, it will mount to any acoustic or even to a electronic drum, like a V-Drums pad, a V-pad, mesh pad, with simply using the existing tension rod. It does not affect the tuning of the drum, and it is completely isolated. As we'll see later, you can play the drum very hard, and it will not falsely set off the pad. The idea of this, it also comes with the hardware where you can mount it on, say, a cowbell holder, a tom mount, if you want to do that. So it's very versatile. $129.50 retail. They sell in stores for $99. Great little add-on for an acoustic drummer who wants to add a pad to trigger a particular sound or sounds, but doesn't have the extra real estate to put a pad and doesn't want to change their setup to get that in. You can put it wherever you want around the circumference of the drum.
I'd like to put a dozen of them around my timpani drums.
Oh, that'd be cool. You could actually put 2 or 3 around a larger tom, like a 16 or 18-inch floor. In fact, a project that I've done before, but I want to do again, is build a complete BT1 or almost all BT1 electronic kit.
Oh, that's neat.
Which would look kind of funny.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
But very versatile, and it's a great pad. It plays very evenly across the surface, and really, that came out in 2013.
And to be clear, it is simply a percussive trigger device. It doesn't come with sounds.
Yeah, there's no sound. There's no
module.
sound in the BT1. And the BT1 is not dependent on striking the drum. It's a separate, independent pad to activate or trigger any sound depending on which device you have it plugged in as far as your sound source is concerned.
Right. Interesting. And again, as you mentioned, we were just chatting earlier, the term trigger does get thrown around so freely.
Yeah, it does.
Break down the different sort of definitions and scenarios.
Well, acoustic triggering is still very commonplace. In fact, when you're talking about some of the resistance, I think any of the viewers who are familiar or follow or are fans of very heavy metal and core metal and the various subgenres know that a lot of those drummers have always triggered their kick drums live for that extra punch.
And to match what's on the recording.
In fact, I'll drop a name of a guy who uses, he uses trigger pedals on his acoustics, Axis trigger pedals, but he uses a TM2-Trigger Module, which we'll talk about in a minute, is Derek Roddy. Great guy, and he's using our stuff. Thomas Lang uses it. There's a lot of guys that play real heavy music that are using that. In fact, I'll drop some other names later who are using our product, and I think some people are going to be surprised of some of these names of people who are regularly using it or are completely embracing it because, again, the music calls for it.
Right.
So talking about acoustic triggers, this is one of our RT10 series acoustic triggers. It is designed to mount on the hoop of the drum. And what we've done, these have been out for, 2006, I believe.
Whoa, they've been around that long? I didn't
quite a
realize
while.
that.
They're a very great product. Very tough plastic. They can take a beating. It has a foam cone underneath, which touches the acoustic drum head.
Okay.
Why I mention that is our V-Drums uses a foam cone on the underside of the mesh head for the sensitivity around the pad. So we've taken that technology and used it for the acoustic trigger. So when you hit the drum, obviously you're sending a signal out. This particular one is the RT10S, which is designed for snare drums and actually has a separate head and rim trigger, so you can actually activate two sounds by striking the rim or the head of the drum.
It is a different piece than what would go on toms because of that feature, correct?
Yeah, exactly. The tom trigger looks identical to this.
Okay.
As far as size, it's just marked differently, and obviously the electronics are different.
Do they come in sets as well as individually?
Individually right now,
Okay.
but there are certain retailers certainly that will bundle them together, and you'll see more of that probably in the next year, where we're actually going to be doing some of that type of packaging. We hope. This one is a larger one. This is the kick trigger, the RT10K. You can see that the foam cone mechanism, the trigger mechanism, is larger because it has to go a longer reach to fit on the kick drum and work very, very well. They're very rugged, they're very durable, they're very reliable, and they've been around, had a very good life. So that's acoustic triggering, where you're actually blending, if you will, the sound of your acoustic drums along with another sound.
And you can adjust that blending amount, correct?
Depending on what you're plugged into.
Right.
Which kind of leads me to this box here.
And I want to mention something on the issue of using those. It's kind of like, because again, a lot of people are like, no, don't use synthetic sounds. If you're hitting acoustic drum, it should be. There's so many scenarios. One of them, again, is duplicating a recorded sound. Another is incorporating, as you'll hear in a little bit, incorporating another sound. And if I could give the analogy of a guitar player sort of doing the same thing, Alex Lifeson of Rush is one of the many guitar players that does that while he's playing an electric guitar, but he's interfacing an acoustic guitar, and you can adjust how much of that you hear. It's the same concept.
Absolutely. So a newer product here, which was introduced this year, almost last year, is the TM2-Trigger Module. And as you can probably see, the display is working because it will actually run on AA batteries as well as the included AC adapter. So if you're in a situation in a club gig where the only available outlets are being used by the guitar player, the nacho machine, and the blender making the drinks, you can comfortably do a whole gig on
or in the
AA.
subway with a pig nose amp.
There you go. So the TM2, very compact box. It has I'm going to flip it around here. It has two dual trigger inputs, 1/4-inch inputs. And what I mean by dual trigger is, depending on what you plug into the input, for example, an RT10S, with one cable you can have head and rim triggering into that one input, and a separate input to do the same thing. Or you can have a single sound. So you have that capability. Also, using an optional Y cable, like an insert cable, tip ring sleeve, you can actually split the inputs into 4 single triggers. So you could have 4 BT1s, or a combination of a BT1, the kick trigger that we'll talk about in a second. The sky's the limit.
And how many sounds did they jam into that little device?
Internal, there are 162 sounds built in, a variety of sounds. Meat and potato sounds, kicks, snares, cymbals, percussion sounds. The venerable TR-808 and 909 sounds are in here, of course. So a lot of different usable sounds, plus the ability to play any sound you want by virtue of the built-in SD card slot, which will play WAV files up to a 32 gig
really cool
SD card. So if you have specific sounds, Derek Roddy I mentioned, he needed to emulate triggered kick drums that were done on a particular recording. So he popped it in there and worked just fine, and it will play those sounds just fine.
And you can trigger sound effects or keyboard arpeggios, all kinds of anything.
Any number of things. So with the WAV file SD card slot, the sky is the limit of what sounds you can play. Now, as far as the internal sounds, there's a couple of ways to look at it with the TM2. You can enhance a sound. For example, snare drum sound, you want a little more depth, perhaps. So you could augment and layer your mic'd acoustic drum along with that other sound.
Got it.
Or you could expand the sound where, let's say you want a completely different sound, maybe a hand clap or a tambourine sound
Along
when
with
you
that
hit the
same
snare
hit,
drum sound,
yeah.
as an example. We also have sounds that are called element sounds. Very different kind of approach. And element sounds, for example, one example would be the crack or attack of a snare drum. Let's say your snare drum, your acoustic snare drum is tuned a certain way. You don't have an auxiliary snare, but on a particular sound you want a little more crack, a little more attack on it. You could add one of those element sounds and trigger it and add that in for that extra bit of depth. Another example would be resonance on a kick drum.
Yeah.
Maybe you need a little more depth to the kick drum.
Add like a room
Yeah,
sound,
and-
sub kick sort of.
Yeah, sub kick
duplication.
or a little more just sustain with the appropriate sound dialed up rather than having to reposition the mic, re-EQ everything. Adding that sound to your acoustic sound might be the answer.
That's cool.
And again, those element sounds by themselves may not make that much sense or sound as usable if you simply put a headphone jack and listen, but they are designed specifically to work with acoustic drums.
Be blended.
Yeah, exactly.
What is that retail for? Jer?
$239 retail, sells in stores for $199. Comes with the little mount to put it on a stand or off a multi-clamp of a hi-hat stand is a real common way to use it, as well as the AC adapter. And again, it will run on AA batteries for about
That's
4
cool.
hours. TM2-Trigger Module.
That's great.
By the way, a little quick plug.
Yeah.
The TM2 was recently named one of the 2014 most innovative percussion products of the year by Music Radar.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
so we're really
cool.
proud of that.
Opening horizons here is what we're doing.
Right.
Now, this pedal, first of all, this is a cool looking pedal. I love the brushed
Isn't it?
plate and everything. Yeah, and it's got a nice, I love that bounce. I was playing around with this earlier.
Is one of my favorite new toys, if you will. This is our new kick trigger pedal, new as in 2014. It was introduced at the same time as the TM2. And it is a self-contained electronic kick trigger. So for that extra sound that you need to activate, and you don't have room for an upright kick pad, or you don't have a spare kick pedal laying around to attach to it, you can use the KT10. It's very rugged, very solid, has a very quiet and precise mechanism that actually does the triggering, and you can actually adjust the feel of it. Those brass pins in there are weights that can be added or removed to
That's
change
cool.
the feel, and you can change the pitch or the angle of the spring like you would with an acoustic pedal. It has an output jack on the side to plug it into whatever sound source that you're using,
Right.
and the mix-in jack actually will allow you to link a couple of KT10s together.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So for an expansion on an existing electronic drum kit, or great for the acoustic player, put it next to the hi-hat stand. You could tuck it under the floor tom, out of the way.
I love how there's no vertical real
Yeah.
estate there. And on the subject of pedals, because as you said, you could basically daisy chain some of these together.
Yes.
And just find a spot for them to get your different sounds. Again, one of those things, you post a picture on Facebook or on a website or something, and if there's 3 bass drums or there's 4 or 16 pedals like this, some people freak out. How do you play that? Like an octopus? What are you supposed to do? Let me ask you a question. Do you have more drums than you do hands to play with sticks? It's the same thing. Have
Yeah.
a good day.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Nothing to fall on the floor,
Yeah,
twitch and foam at the mouth
multiple
about.
pedal usage is some of the players are doing a lot of it, more than just double pedals and double bass drums.
Right.
But multiple pedals. I mean, it's not that uncommon for a guy to have a second hi-hat.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
multiple electronic pedals are very commonplace. Another quick name drop, maybe not as familiar. He's one of the top Broadway drummers. His name is Sammy Marantino, good friend, and he plays in a very popular Broadway show called Kinky Boots. And I had the pleasure of visiting him in June at the Hirshberg Theater in New York City, and he has a full hybrid kit that he plays for the show that incorporates a full acoustic kit, acoustic cymbals, along with electronics, pads, mesh pads, electronic cymbals. He uses 2 KT10s next to his bass drum pedal, because in that show he has to quickly change scenes for songs and styles and get different songs on the fly.
Right.
And so that's a whole nother area of the industry. In fact, 4 of the top New York-based Broadway drummers use some bit of electronics in their acoustic kits.
Right.
And Carter McLean from The Lion King, for example, uses an SPD-SX.
That's
Very
cool.
common. So it's another aspect where those sounds that they have to recreate and count on the reliability of the product night after night,
Right.
they found the answer there. And
That's great. Retail?
$269, I believe it sells in stores for about $239,
Great.
if I'm not
so
mistaken.
it's just right in there with an array of
Yeah,
different
and again,
pedal
it's
prices.
a self-contained trigger pedal.
Right.
You don't have to attach anything else to it except a cable going to your sound source.
Right.
Ready to go.
Great.
One thing I wanted to say quickly about these, one thing we like to say about these products is they're solution products. They're not full, complete drum sets, but they answer a need
Right.
for maybe the drummer who needs that extra kick to trigger a sound, or doesn't want to take a laptop to a gig
Right. With
to
all the
trigger
sound-
sounds. They can put the wave files in here, attach this to the hi-hat with a multi-clamp, connect their pads or triggers to it, and you're ready to go.
Right.
Another solution product that is completely different, and we can save this for the V-drum segment, but I'll just show one of them here. This is called the Noise Eater NE10, and what this is,
I feel that.
it's designed for the home use primarily. Electronic drum sets are very quiet, and one of the advantages of using them is you can plug in headphones.
Right.
However, if you live in an apartment building and you are playing an electronic kick drum,
You're still
your
stomping.
neighbors are hearing thump, 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 thump. So this particular device is actually designed to go underneath your bass drum pedal. With some of our V drums kits, the kick trigger will fit on top, kick trigger pad will fit on top of it. And it actually will reduce the vibration through the floor or ceiling, depending on your on what floor
end
you're
of
on,
it you're on.
literally by up to 70%, if
Wow.
not more. It's substantial, and it actually works. And if you just bang it like that and kind of, you can feel kind of
Oh,
that
yeah,
vibration. It's
absolutely.
kind of like that floating floor
Yeah.
kind of idea that recording
Yeah, for
studios
studios.
work. So this is a solution product,
That's
and
cool.
I don't recall retail on this. It's around $150, $120, which seems very expensive. But one rebuttal that I'll give immediately, it's a lot cheaper than getting evicted from
I
your
was just
apartment.
thinking that. Absolutely.
Or with the police.
Or rock through the window.
There's a companion product. This is called the NE1. Looks like a little hockey puck.
Yeah.
And what this is designed to do is it goes under the legs of the hi-hat stand, acoustic hi-hat stand,
Oh, to kind of do the same thing.
or the spurs of the larger mesh kick pads. And if you push on it, you can feel. And that also
it's
is
like the shock.
designed to absorb that vibration
Yeah.
that's transmitted through the floor.
Oh, that's neat.
So these are different products, but again, a solution product.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you have an electronic drum set and you're happy, oh, I can practice at 2 o'clock in the morning, why are the police pounding on my door at 2 o'clock in the morning? Maybe you need some
Yeah.
noise eaters, and that'll solve the problem, and you can have those late night jam sessions.
That's cool. Very cool. Can we tap on some goodies?
Yeah, you want to play some drums?
Yeah, that'd be great. Cool.